Wow, I loved that stuff you guys were talking about at the end, especially with the Tim Keller quote. But I have to laugh too about you were talking about your kids. Oh, I just want you to be a part of the picture. Me too. I totally get that. But that is.
Don't tell me too much. I don't want.
Yeah. just keep me happy, people.
Yeah, keep me happy. That's your job, child.
Yeah. But yeah, that is so. I like how simply that's put, and it's so true. Is to be seen, to be known, and to be loved are very important. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things you shared, Jenet, that really jumped out at me. I'm curious. You talked about the child who drew the picture of the basically the breaking heart, and the mom and dad on either side. How are they doing now? Are they managing or?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think being taken out of that abusive dynamic has actually been really helpful. Now, what's interesting is the children want to see their dad. And these are under supervised visits every week so that he's able to have a healthy interaction. And so it's interesting. I think every child actually yearns for connection with their parent. It's so hard to understand when you have someone who's hard, who's bad, but that is the truth. And so I think a safe environment to grow that allows for some connection to feel like they are loved by that other parent is healthier by far than being in the midst of that conflict and abuse.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned how children are very perceptive and keen to unresolved conflicts with their parents. What should parents be doing to be better aware of that and to better manage that so that their conflicts don't spill over into the kids' lives and affect them in that way?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. We have this family discussion sometimes where my mom grew up seeing literally no conflict between her parents. They just did not. And in some ways, it's debilitating, right? Because though it's like this beautiful, heavenly, like growing up and peaceful, and that's a gift, there's also a lack of being able to navigate conflict in some ways, lack of confidence in doing that. And so I think there's a lot of power in parents showing children that we can talk about things that are difficult between us and be respectful, and we can get over them. We can work with them and we can overcome conflict. And I think that not being so afraid of it, but being confident in our ability to do this together in a healthy way is probably what we want children to feel. And so I think any child, they don't like it when their parents are having conflict, even if it's healthy, like conflict, they're still uncomfortable, but it's like a peace comes over them. And I can see it in my children when they can watch mom and dad be able to do something difficult in a healthy way and come to a resolution. And all the while there was a sense of like, we're okay, we can do hard things. And then they develop the confidence that, gosh, when I encounter hard things with other people, I can do this, right? And
that's really, really good. Is there any conflict? Let me, I guess, preface this a little bit. Before I got married, I had somebody give me the wonderful wisdom of don't ever complain about your spouse in front of your own siblings or your parents.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of like nugget like that parents should know, not like conflicts not to have in front of their kids, or is there anything like that?
Well, it seems like I love teaching the Four Horsemen, right? And Gottman's Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And every time I teach them, right, criticism, what's the difference between a criticism and a complaint? Well, criticism is a character attack. It's saying like, you're just a pathetic person, right? Or you're, and then you move into, right, criticism, contempt. And what's funny is he lists, eye rolling is an example of contempt. Well, I find myself eye rolling sometimes, like, oh, brother, right?
Really human, yeah.
To my husband or to my kids. And Mike will always say, whoop, that's one of those four horsemen, right? And that you always teach about, right? And I think checking one another in the way that we communicate, getting rid of criticism and contempt and stonewalling, right? And why am I forgetting criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, right? Like, we're just working on that as a human being. I am not going to, I know we're going to have difficulty that we have to, because we're different people, but I am not going to enter into a space where I am criticizing, showing contempt, being defensive. I'm going to work on that. And that to me is like, if we can figure out how to respectfully communicate to one another and check ourselves and stop ourselves when we do that kind of thing and say, that wasn't right for me to do that to you, then we've given our children an incredible gift.
Yeah.
I like how
can you go one step further?
Sorry.
Hold on a second, Rex. With that, I just want to go one step further and apologizing. Yeah. Tell us about the power of an apology
that's a good point.
In front of children to my spouse, if they witnessed this, or an apology from a parent to a child.
Well, you said children can map us, right? They know what's going on. They map hypocrisy better than anything else. Like, they can read right off. I can't believe how our kids are like this. They know right off when dad has not apologized fully, or when mom has not apologized. And their respect for us. When I ask my students, can you remember a time your parents apologized? It is, I'm sorry. Sorry about this.
Are you getting the facts?
The printer next to me. Mike is printing something before he goes to teach. Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Of all the things that build respect in a child for a parent, it's them honestly apologizing, like without defensiveness, without any kind of show, without trying to cover it up. When we do that for our children, the respect, I think, because hypocrisy is so offensive to them and they're so keyed into it. When we show an honesty about ourselves, like, you can almost do anything if you have that. Like, you can have any weakness with a child if they sense that you are an honest person with yourself and with others. It's powerful.
That's so true, because kids really have a strong sense of justice.
Yes.
They're
especially between their parents, right?
Yeah. And they're baffled, even in a movie or a news story, like, why isn't justice being served here?
Yeah.
I see that with my kids and so many kids. When I was a teacher, I see kids do that all the time.
Yeah.
I like how you, kind of condense it down to hypocrisy, because that's really what it is. That's beautiful. And Dave, thanks for mentioning that apology thing. That is powerful. That is so true.
It's such a paradox, because we're worried about, like, being perfect to them, right? Like, as a mom, I'm like, I don't want them to see, I'm supposed to be perfect for these people. Like, I don't want them to see. And actually, the power lies, because I can't hide from them. There's no way I can hide from them. And my being honest about that with them is like, they're like, thank you so much. Like, I can be safe with you, Mom, because I know you're going to be honest. I saw it. And I know now that you're going to be honest. So it's just, it's not, the power isn't that. I love that statement from William Kotz, where he says, perfection is not possible. Intimacy is. And that's always the choice. Like, am I going to choose to hide? I'm going to choose to, like, feign something here? Or am I going to choose to be known and seen in honesty? And then I'm okay with my weaknesses, so you can be okay with yours.
Wow, I love it. I love all these little nuggets and the stuff you have. There's so many things that stood out, and that's beautiful. I like how you mentioned too, the human condition is one that we like to judge others and not see our own faults, and that is so true. And I catch myself doing that a lot too. But that goes back to the hypocrisy thing, is being willing to admit your faults, and I made a mistake here and I'm sorry. And kids really respect that. You mentioned that this is something I see a lot, and I think it's so important, is that people, there's this weird idea that, when the kids are grown, divorce doesn't affect them. Yeah. But it still affects their identity no matter how old they are.
Yeah.
And you use that word exiled. You said that word comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And that was very, I don't know, surprising to me that would be the word, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Like, there's not a safe place to go that is home. Yeah.
And it's the experience, something that kind of resonated with me. And I didn't experience this, but I would just be like, gosh, that would be kind of interesting to go through life, is if your grandparents are divorced and having to go to these different, where it's a different home here and a different home here and a different set of rules here and my identity here and there. That just spoke to me, like how difficult that's got to be for kids to navigate, or uncomfortable to try to be something else here and a different thing there.
Yeah.
And going around that, how that has to affect them. That is, thanks for sharing that. Because that really spoke to me. I'm sure it's going to speak to the listeners.
Even though it's really important to know, right, that because it could feel sort of hopeless, right? Like, and yet, you've seen remarkable people who have navigated divorce, and they're the world's best parents. Like, I always laugh that sometimes those that go through divorce, they figure out what really matters. Like, they figure out what really counts in a relationship with a child, and they don't mess around anymore with kind of being halfway a good parent. And so I just think there's a lot to be said for how very difficult experiences that we would not choose, that we have to go through, that they can be a catalyst for helping us figure things out in a far deeper way than we might have without that challenge. And I have seen it over and over again. I look at my siblings who are divorced, and they are incredible parents. And I know it's because they had to figure out. And I'm still kind of like, well, I got more space here. I don't have to be as good because I got Mike to kind of make up for stuff, right? And I can, and they have to develop. And I think they figure out what really matters here is my connection to this child and all that other stuff, right? My image and whatever else.
What is happening? You mentioned like your husband came from, not a very spiritual home, and the parents divorced. Like, what has helped him, really navigate being married and that commitment and all that stuff? Is there anything that's really helped reshape his outlook on marriage and commitment?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think he's an example of what we might see consistently, where religion is a powerful influence on people relationally. And I think what it does is it gives this sense of, I belong to something bigger than myself. I am cared for and I'm loved, and that there's something to give my life for. And so coming into a marriage, we all need that. We all need to see this as something higher than myself, something bigger than myself. And so for him, religion has been a powerful influence. And what's sweet is his parents who were not religious, and him becoming religious, he could feel like, I'm leaving them, right? Like there was that fear of, and yet because religion can be such a gift in our relationships, it's actually brought him closer to them. He cared more about connecting with them. He wanted to take time to be with them. And they, I think, would look at his life and he would say, where I would be without these influences, I'd be in a broken life. Even though he's bright and capable and all of those things, relationally, I would have had a broken life. But this has been a wholeness that's put that together. And they would say the same thing, I think, with a lot of admiration, like seeing the goodness in his life relationally through religion and through intact marriage. And
has that affected them at all?
Yes, they have changed. I think they have changed. Yeah.
That's good. This is my last question. And I always like to usually hold this for the last question, but what drew you into this discipline and this great care and love that you have for marriage and relationships?
Yeah, that's so, I did nursing as an undergraduate, and then I studied linguistics, teaching English as a second language. I got into nursing and I thought, I'm going to kill people instead of saving their lives. I was just not born a good nurse for whatever reasons, the way that I operate. And somewhere in the midst of that, I went to a conference, and it was about the impact of the family on economies and poverty rates and crime rates. And I was so mind blown. And I realized, wow, this is where saving lives happens. And I'm so grateful for good nurses, like I can be involved in the work of saving lives at the core here. by us realizing we are deeply relational beings and we are born for love, and that what we can do to facilitate that, what we can overcome, how we can heal, what we can devote our lives to, it's just worth everything. I think every profession really is grounded in the home and the strength of a family, right?
I agree. I think it's the foundation of civilization and society. And being a Christian, I believe that's God's intention.
Yeah. And he'll help us. He's going to help us do it. Yeah.
This has been a beautiful interview, Jenet. Thank you so much for being on here. Did you guys have any follow-ups?
No, thank you.
Just gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for giving your lives to helping people in the trenches and educating them.
We'd love to keep following you, Dr. Jenet, and have you on again sometime, if that's okay. Keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on this research side and for teaching. Oh gosh, your students are blessed. I love what you said to that student. It was just so beautiful about I'm trying to think now. Loving is, we love without knowing, really, right?
Yeah.
And then we know someone is like, do I love them? Do I love them? The question mark. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Please take good care. Our best to your family in the new year, and you
too.
And
bless you both.
We'll talk again.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.